Well, hello everyone. I got it worked out. So, we're good. I've got myself behind myself. Um, so, what we're going to talk about today is I entitled this "The Beginning is the End," and that's a little bit hard to explain without really kind of walking everyone through. So, in the last, those of you that follow me, in the last 30, 60 days, you've seen that I've sold some companies. You've seen that uh, I've announced I'm closing some companies. You've seen that I've announced I'm doing a podcast. You've seen me start with a new web page. You've kind of seen a lot of change, if you will, going on. And I've had people, send me emails like, "Oh, Tim, are you hurting?" And it's like, well, no, I'm not hurting. Uh, I've had people send me emails like, uh, you know, "Hey, what's your podcast about? Is it a real estate podcast?" No, it's not. I think what happens is there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that struggle, and they struggle with things that I think normal, everyday, run-of-the-mill Americans don't struggle with. One of those being time management. One of some of those being marketing and the business-related side. But I turned 40 last year, and when I turned 40, I, my wife says I had a midlife crisis. I don't think I did. What I think more happened is I found perspective. I found a way to ground myself. I found a reality that was based in happiness versus accomplishment. So, to really help you understand where I'm going, I kind of have to go to the end of me building 2020 REI, which was the beginning of the journey I'm on now. So it was April 8th of 2018. It was our monthly real estate investor, DFW investors event. And at that event, it was a big deal. I was committed that these events were important, right? They were really important to what we do, and it's kind of funny when you really think about it. We do that a lot in this business, in business in general. Let's see. I'm doing one thing real quick. Hold tight with me. I'm trying to fix this. So the title, "The Beginning Was the End." We'll start all the way over. So the reason I say the beginning was the end is April 8th, 2018, we had a DFW investors meeting. And many of you in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that know me know that those meetings were monthly events. They were all about networking and education and training, and that's what we told ourselves, and that's what we did, and I think we did a good job. Obviously the events weren't perfect, but I think we did a good job, and I think I told myself that those events were really important, and they were really important. Frankly, just because of my ego. They weren't really important because they made me so much extra money, and they weren't really important because they were, just the world's best marketing platforms. They were important because, like many entrepreneurs do, we we kept hosting the meeting because that's what we do, right? We host monthly meetings, so that's what we do here, and we kept doing the meetings. And so on April 8th of last year, what happened was I got a call. I was hanging out at the bar with a lot of the guests, talking, networking, yucking it up, and I got a call from my kid's coach, and my kid's coach said, "Hey, Alex hurt his knee. You need to come get him." And I said, "Well, I'm busy. I'm doing something really important." And it says my video has ended. Yeah, I know you're watching. You're like, okay, Tim, stop typing. But I'm trying to broadcast this simultaneous on my Facebook page as well. I don't know why it ended. So the beginning was the end. So they call. I'm at this networking meeting. It's really important, and I say, "Look, I don't have time. I'm working. I'm handling this important thing. Let me call my wife." So I call my wife, Jennifer, and I send her over there. She goes over and picks him up, and they're texting me throughout the night while I'm still at this networking event because it's important, right? My business, it's important. You'll notice there's a theme there, and so I stayed and I kept networking at the networking event, and she tells me that he can't move his leg and his knee's locked up, but I stayed because that's what we do, right? As entrepreneurs, the business becomes the purpose instead of the purpose of the whole reason we started the business being the purpose. So I stayed, and I got home and I checked his knee late at night, and I said, you're going to be fine. Anyway, a couple days later, he's on the operating table and getting his meniscus repaired, and having surgery. And that was in April. In the next month, I was about to turn 40 years old. So there's all the reflection that has to do with being 40 years old, and I get it. But as I started to think, I realized what had happened is I'd begun to prioritize the business over the reasons that I started the business, right? We all start these businesses for reasons like to help our family. We start these businesses for reasons to spend more time with our wife. We start these businesses so we have time to coach our kids' sports. We start these businesses for all these reasons. And then, just lo and behold, the business becomes more important than the reason that we actually started it, because that's what we do, right? We keep making it bigger and bigger and bigger. If you have ever seen the Disney movie The Lorax, it's called biggering, right? We make it bigger and bigger and bigger. And as entrepreneurs, we all suffer from these, as Michael Gerber in the book The E-Myth would call it, these entrepreneurial seizures. And so I looked around last year, and I owned a real estate brokerage when my mom's a realtor, my dad's a realtor, my grandpa was a realtor. I got more realtors than my in-laws are realtors. I got more realtors in my life than most people know what to do with. And yet, I don't like the realtor business. I don't. Yet, I ended up owning a real estate brokerage. We started it because it made sense for what we were trying to do here. We owned an insurance company, which made sense because of what we were trying to do here. We owned a real estate loan brokerage company because it made sense because of what we were trying to do here. We had a wholesaling company because it made sense. We had a rental company because it made sense. We owned owner finance mortgages because it made sense. We had all these things that made sense with what we were already doing, so we started them. And what happens as the entrepreneur when you start these things it becomes your responsibility. It becomes something that you have to do. It becomes something that you're committed for, that you're on the hook for. And then what happens is you start spending your resources, and not just money, your time, your energy, your attention. You start spending that on these things that aren't important, and frankly go against the whole reason we started doing this anyway. So, what I got lucky. I caught myself. I stopped. I stopped growing businesses. I stopped opening new businesses. I stopped coming to an office just because I should be at the office. I stopped saying one day I would like to eat at this barbecue place. I stopped putting everything in front of my kids instead of putting my kids in front of everything else. I stopped letting the business be the reason I got up in the morning, and I started making my family and my goals and my happiness the reason that I get up in the morning again. And it's helped me. It's I'm happier. I actually make more money now, because when you start letting go as an entrepreneur, when you start letting go of ideas and tasks and things that take up your time that maybe you don't need to do, you start having time for things that are important. And what you find is, I talk to entrepreneurs all the time. It's my business. It's what I've done. I help entrepreneurs with their business, and we all become real estate investors instead of staying entrepreneurs, and then we become realtors instead of staying an entrepreneur, and then we become house flippers instead of becoming. And we start to identify as our profession, when most of the entrepreneurs I talk to, the whole reason they're in the profession they're in, allegedly, is to have more of what they wanted, right? They wanted to quit their job so they'd have more more financial freedom. They wanted to, when I own the real estate brokerage, I talk to realtors all the time, and they would say, "Oh, I want to be a realtor so I can have freedom. I want financial freedom. I want to make my own schedule." Well, then the first thing that happens as a realtor is other people start making your schedule, right? And I talk to real estate investors that say, "Oh, I want to flip houses so I can have financial freedom and I can make my own schedule." Then the first thing that happens is you have to go look at houses on Saturday and miss your kid's football game, or you have to miss dinner with your family because that's what time we look at houses. And we all justify it. We say, "Oh, the end will justify the means." And I'm just here to tell you, I'm a big fan of working hard. I think everyone here should work hard, but the caution is, be careful not to let the business become the purpose. Make sure that you stay focused on the purpose, and the purpose is not to own a bigger business. The purpose, typically, when talking to entrepreneurs, is to have more free time. It's to have a sense of financial freedom. It's to make your own schedule. But then, it's funny. What happens is the investors just it turns into an animal. It becomes a popularity contest. So many of you are spending so much time on Facebook and InstaChat, and I do that on purpose, actually, just to mess with my kids. It's not InstaChat, I know, it's Instagram and Snapchat. But so many of you spend so much time on social media trying to measure yourself against what someone else is doing or what someone else has. And I'll just tell you, it doesn't matter what someone else is doing, and it doesn't matter what someone else has, because what matters is, why are you doing this in the first place, right? My friend Randy, his whole thing is he does it for his daughter to have a career and his grandkids to have what he didn't have. And that's awesome. And he stays focused on that, right? Uh, Someone like me, I got way off track, right? I started just biggering and biggering and biggering and more businesses and more events and more expos and starting a hedge fund company and raising private capital and just all these things, right? You see the like crazy mirror, Tim, back there. I don't know why I did that, but I can lean over like this and you'll see like 100 of me. You know, it's I don't know why in my earlier age, and yes, I'm 40. That may not sound old to you if you're watching. It's old to me. It's the oldest I've ever been, right? I've got gray hair. I'm old. The point is, I've wasted the time with my kids. I used to think, and we're all taught this lie, if you work hard and put in your time, one day you can live the life you want. Well, I'm here to tell you, especially if you're younger and you have kids in the house or near the house, or you're planning on having kids, like, I say work a little less while you got the kids in the house. I say work a little less while you're there for them and they're there and they need you. I wish I had. I wish I'd spent a little bit more time with my kids. I wish I'd taken the time to teach my older son like to mow the yard. And that may sound stupid, but you know, we've been blessed in this real estate business. And we one day we were leaving, and I said, "Hey," I'm talking to my wife. I said, "Hey, you know, I see the neighbor kid mowing the yard, and I say, why doesn't some of our kid mow the yard?" And she looks at me and she goes, "Well, Tim, we'd have to buy a lawnmower." And I was like, "Oh, yeah," because we've always had so many houses that we just send, the yard guy, we have him go mow our house too. And, that's just the whole thing. I know there's a lot of questions, and I know that I kind of struggled with the technology a little here. To me, the beginning was of the path I'm on right now was when I finally realized that the path I was on, and that was building all these big companies. That other path was one where I was literally sacrificing those that I love most for this vision, this business, this endeavor that it took on a life of its own. And and when I finally decided last year, after I wasn't there for them, to stop growing businesses, stop spending my money, stop spending my time, stop giving my attention and my energy to anyone other than those that need it most. Not only did I derive probably the largest sense of happiness I've had ever as an adult, I feel better. I'm happier. I'm making more money. I'm mentally free to think about big things. Whereas before, I literally kind of created this situation where I had to be at the office. I had to get here and make sure that people were working, and I had to get here and make sure that the bills were paid, and get here and make sure that the mail had been checked, and get here and make sure that the time cards were being kept, and all these things that I see entrepreneurs now that I stopped doing it and I realized how bad it was for me. I'm actually now able to, when I see other entrepreneurs, and it's not just real estate. That's why I refuse to call what we're launching in March a real estate podcast, because it's not. Because I see it in all walks of life, whether it's someone starting a carpet cleaning company, or someone starting a mobile detailing company, or whatever. I see it in all walks of entrepreneurialism. And while I think you should be applauded for your desire to better yourself or better your family, my thing is, don't put the business or the goal or the venture or the activity above and in front of the whole reason you started it. Because you'll end up like me, someone that I mean, we were running $1 million business, and when I say $1 million business, I don't mean revenue, I mean expenses. I mean, we got to where we were spending $1 million a year on just keeping the lights on here. We had 6,000 square foot up on the 11th floor, overlooking downtown Dallas. Had 50 people running around here, and all because, and that's the funny thing, all because I said I wanted to spend more time with my family, but I created this thing that, it took me away from my family. So my thing is stay true to what you are and who you are, right? So if you want to live a modest life, and make 10 grand a month, off your rental portfolios, right? Don't get distracted by the Lamborghinis. Don't get distracted by the guy or gal that says that they bought 10 houses in a month. Don't get distracted by the mastermind, by the event, by the live broadcast, by the person that's, saying, oh, well, if you'll invest in this system, you can get bigger. And I'm just saying, why would you want to be bigger? As an entrepreneur, like, the whole point is to have more freedom. And I'm here to tell you that a big company is not freedom. A big company is responsibility, it's obligation, right? And thank you, Chris, and thank you, Christopher, two Christophers. The point is, find what works for you, and if that's living in a $200,000 house, making $10,000 a month, do it. I mean, I had this dream, and it wasn't my dream. I started I was going to sell my company for $50 million, right? Number one, I don't know why I wanted $50 million. I don't know what I'd do with $50 million. I mean, it'd be nice to have $50 million, but I don't know what I would do with it, number one. And number two, 5 is enough, right? I mean, and I know there's people watching I'd take 1. I get it, right? But, 10, $100,000 houses that get $1,000 a month rent, you lose 25%. I'm not going to get into real estate. But anyway, the point is, that makes you $6-7 grand a month before taxes. I mean, you're living in the top 30% of people in the world, right? But I see these real estate entrepreneurs, it's like, oh, I need 40 houses. It's like, why? I mean, I think, my advice to entrepreneurs is stay focused on why you did it in the first place, and stay focused on who you're doing it for. And, I see entrepreneurs that they don't get married because they're too focused on their business. And I see entrepreneurs that get divorced because they're too focused on their business. And I see people that ignore their kids and their family because they're too focused on their business. I just saw my dad join. I mean, I've canceled trips with my dad to go fishing because I was too busy at work. And somebody said the other day, how do you take time to eat so much barbecue, Tim? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I live in Texas. There's a barbecue joint around every corner. It's just all about making it a priority. And I love barbecue, so I go eat barbecue. I just got back from eating barbecue. I brought some extra here and gave it to Adam. This is just, I'm doing a podcast with CBS Radio, Intercom. They've asked me to kind of show what I want to talk about. So I thought this would be the best way to get something they could look at. So I hope you enjoyed it. We are launching a podcast. If you have questions or ideas, things you want me to talk about, if you want me to bring on guests, again, it's not going to be a real estate investing podcast. So, I'm going to bring in some entrepreneurs. I'm going to bring in some marketing folks. I'm going to bring in some business coaches. You know, I'm not going to bring in, short-term rental. You know, we'll talk about real estate, because to me, real estate is a great vehicle for wealth and freedom if you actually keep it that way, right? It's when you start wholesaling and doing all this crazy stuff, like, it just becomes a really crazy business. And I said to someone, I'd love to buy houses. And like, here's my closing point. I don't love to buy houses. I don't. There is nothing about a phone ringing and me driving 45 minutes to Grand Prairie and spending 45 minutes with some dude smoking and blowing smoke in my face who hadn't bathed in 2 weeks, and to only be told that some Yahoo outbid me by $20,000 that has no intention of closing and doesn't even understand what he's doing, to drive 45 minutes back to the office. There is nothing I enjoy about that. Now, if I go stop at Top 5 Barbecue down in DeSoto on my way there, it at least makes the trip worth it. And I have fun doing it. And, you know, now, yeah, there are times that I can go take that 45-minute trip, spend 45 minutes, make 20 grand on the house, and spend 45 minutes back. You got, 3-4 hours invested in 20,000. It makes it worth it. But I think the whole point is, don't let that become the reason that you get out of bed in the morning, right? Stay focused on what you want, not what social media and the public tells you should want. And spend time with your family. And if you're not a family person, spend time with your dog. Spend time watching baseball games. Go eat. Start a family. All that. So I told myself I was going to keep this to 30 minutes. Sorry we had all the little technical issues. Just do me a favor. You can email me, tim@timharridge.com. If you got any questions, I'm happy to talk about them. If you got any topics that you think we should do, I'm happy to do that. If you just want to say hello, I'm happy to do that. I don't offer any coaching, mentoring. I don't have anything to sell you unless you want a house in Irving or Plano. That's all I have. So until next time, I hope everybody has a great day. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your time. Like this, share this, and we'll have a podcast and all this other stuff. So, peace.